Well, hey everyone. I see, according to the clock tower, it is 2 p.m. So we are going to get started. And a couple of business items first. Considering what happened with our first Zoom town hall meeting and our very unwelcome, unwanted guests, as you know, we all had a password to log into this town hall meeting. So thank you for doing what we can to keep, I guess, our community safe. I really appreciate that. Second order of business is Jenny is back joining us today and is going to help us moderate any questions that might come up or anything else that might happen. So Jenny, you are somewhere on here, yes?
Yeah, hi everybody.
Good. And another order of business is today is Justin Daly's birthday. So everybody, let's wish Justin a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Justin.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Birthday.
And if it's somebody else's birthday, I'm sorry, I did not know. So anyway, Justin, glad you could celebrate with us and that you invited us to your party.
Well, thanks for the birthday wishes. I appreciate it.
All right. I think, and Jenny, please correct me if I'm wrong. Are we recording this town hall meeting and then we will share it after?
That's right. Lynn, I was just checking with Diana. I forgot to ask Diana if you wanted me to stream to YouTube right now. Is that something you'd like to do?
Not particularly.
Okay, no problem. Then in that case, we'll take the recording from today and put it on the town hall site after the fact. And then at 10 after 2 o'clock, we will also lock the meeting. And then no participants are allowed to share screens right now. So we have, and we have a password. So we have triple lockdown this town hall. So hopefully that should take care of everything.
Great. Thank you. Do you want to go over how the questions will work, the Q&A?
Absolutely. So this is similar to last time. You will ask questions via the chat feature on Zoom. You can ask publicly, as you see here, or you can start typing my name or select my name and ask me the question, and that will ensure that you have anonymously asked the question, and then I can ask Lynn for you. And so that will be a very similar process. If you have any questions, let me know about that, and I will turn it back over to you, Lynn.
Great. Thank you. So a few things. What we have is, I think, Diana, are you controlling our slideshow? So we have our agenda item for this town hall meeting. And what we want to do is talk about our roaring back plans, a budget update, enrollment update, along with the communications that we've had with our students. I do want to talk about Black Lives Matter and the protests and the demonstrations and the societal changes that I hope are happening in our world, and then we're going to have Q&A. So I am going to turn it over to get us started on our roaring back plans to our Dean of Students, Craig Chatrand.
Hi everybody, I hope you're having a good afternoon. There's a couple things that I wanted to talk about quickly as we talk about roaring back and having our campus reopening and folks coming back to work. The plan right now is that most of our campuses and campus buildings will be open. I believe June 29th is the date that most of the buildings will be unlocked and for people to start going in and out of again. There's a couple of things that we're asking staff and students and visitors to our campuses to do when they come on campus. The first and most important is that we expect people to wear face coverings. And this is a topic that I'm getting passionate about because I have gotten the opportunity to talk so much about it. But most of the research that we're starting to see come out right now indicates that face coverings are about the most important thing we can do to keep our campus community safe. And so in all of our efforts to try to remain face-to-face for instruction and for our ability to serve students, we expect everyone to wear face coverings when they're outside of an individual office. So if you leave your office to go use the restroom or to walk down to another colleague's office, please wear a face covering. If you need one, we have some in our office. You can check those out through Patty's stance. We're also, the university is ordering 2 face coverings for every staff member. Those won't be here till later in the summer, but those are something that will be coming out as well. If you have a unique circumstance, or you are part of a vulnerable population, or you care for someone in your household who is a member of a vulnerable population, you might want to wait a little bit longer before you come back to the office also. There's some offices that are going to be doing a rotation of staffing, so maybe a half or a third of the staff is in the office one day and a different half or a different third is in the office another day. That's just part of a coming back to campus plan. But if you are part of a vulnerable population or a caregiver of one, and that you anticipate wanting to work remotely for a longer period of time, we're going to ask you to fill out a form through HR, a telecommuting form. You can find that particular form on the COVID-19 Roaring Back part of ISU's website. Also on that website is a really great supervisor checklist. And so it helps supervisors make sure that they've covered everything that we would ask them to cover for working or having their employees come back onto campus and working in the office. So those are 2 great resources that I would expect you to check out if you need. The last thing that we're trying to say really strongly about coming back to campus is that we need to be able to help our community take care of itself. We wear face coverings because it's going to help other people. There's some evidence that would say it also helps protect me, but the main reason we wear face coverings is we don't want to get other people sick. We want other people to feel safe and healthy around us. And so as you come back, we'd like you to act with care and compassion towards one another. We don't want the issue of face coverings or physical distancing to be one that makes it challenging to work together and to work with one another. But if somebody in your office asks you to please wear a face covering because they're worried about getting sick, it's our expectation that you are going to care for other people around you by doing that. That's the information that I have on Roaring Back right now. You can find a lot more information through the COVID-19 website off the main ISU website. It's got a lot of FAQs and resources for where we're at as an institution right now. So to pivot from that, I would like to introduce one of our newest team members to talk a little bit about our budget. Megan Baskins has recently come to work and help our division as our UBO. And so, Megan, I'll turn it over to you now.
All right. Well, thank you, Craig. And first, I just want to say I'm very happy to be here with all of you guys. This is definitely the broadest audience I've had so far. So a big hello to this division, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I had prepared a couple slides, but I am assuming, I think I heard I can't do a screen share. Is that correct? Okay. So I will just try to say the numbers clearly. And I'll just read through what I got here for you guys. So this is just a really high-level overview of what we're looking at for fiscal year 21. As part of the fiscal year 21 budget process, all of the units across campus participated in a budget reduction exercise where we were asked to provide scenarios for 4%, 5%, and 6% reductions to our initially proposed budgets. With that, Student Affairs realized a 4% reduction to our recurring base, which amounted to an approximate reduction of about $1,257,000. We met this responsibility by reducing 3 high-level areas. Operating funds were reduced by, they will be reduced by $432,000. Let's see. This reduction consists mostly of travel, materials, and supplies, as well as some postponement of some planned purchases that were going to take place in the current year. Salaried positions will be reduced by about $419,000. This reduction consists of a mixture of postponed hiring positions, a couple retirements and interim appointment placements, as well as 6 positions that will be eliminated in the upcoming year. Irregular pay will be reduced by about $280,000. This reduction will be seen mainly with student workers in the housing unit. Despite the division reductions, we were able to get some approval on additional funding for the upcoming year as well. So with that, we were able to get 3 new salaried positions that were approved, amounting to just under $229,000. We also were able to get additional operating funds totaling just under $222,000, where we will be getting a new communication system implemented. Of this amount, $152,000 will be ongoing annually with a $69,000 one-time setup fee. So between the reductions and the additions for the upcoming year, Student Affairs ending budget is currently sitting at approximately $30.7 million, which reflects a net reduction of about $680,000 for the year. And so that is my high-level summary for you guys. If anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Hey, Megan, would you talk a little bit about furloughs?
So there are furloughs. So the information is posted on the, I believe, HR's website. I could be wrong on that. I could get the link for anybody that's interested, but there is all the information out there. There were brackets that were given. My understanding is anyone under $40,000 a year will be required to take any furlough days. And then obviously anything above 40 comes up within brackets. We have, they're suggesting that we take half of our furlough days the first half of the year, and then the remaining half the following half of the year. And I think that's just to monitor, if changes within the budget or within the funds come out within, halfway through the year, we can adjust it as needed. Let's see what else. There is also a voluntary furlough program, I know, for anybody that is willing to take some voluntary furlough days. We do have that opportunity out there, but they are asking that you work with your supervisors so that we can make sure our work needs are met as well. Specific questions on the furloughs, or does that kind of give you a high-level summary on that as well?
Thank you, Megan.
Yes.
I think the thing with furloughs is it starts after the new fiscal year, which is July 1. And so, as Megan said, we are expected to take half of our furlough days in the first half of the academic year, so before December 31, and the second half of our days after, as of January 1. And somebody pointed out that we have 1 month or 2 months with 3 paychecks. I guess I'm still getting used to getting paid more than once a month. So anyway, that perhaps might help with some things. But anyway, I know that furloughs can be very, very challenging, and it affects everyone. Just let us know what you need to kind of help manage that and get through that. So Megan, thanks for the overview of our budget as well.
Can I also just add on the furlough? They did also say that you can take half-day increments as well. So if you just wanted to take a half day per pay period and just have that half-day furlough, you can do that as well to make it a little bit less of a hit.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I am going to now introduce Stacy Phelan and Corey Zink because I wanted them to talk about our enrollment updates and then how we are communicating with our prospective students as well as our current ongoing students. So, Stacy. And Stacy, I don't know if you're muted, but I do know Stacy had to call in.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
I'm going to be doing old school on the phone. Well, everyone, I just wanted to share a few things about enrollment. I just uploaded this data this morning as of June 12th. We have just under 6,000 admitted students, which is a 48.4% increase over the 4,000 or so students that we had admitted at this time last year. So that's phenomenal growth. We're really excited to see those numbers coming in. And if you would switch to the next slide, Diana. I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of how we're communicating with our prospective students. We are in constant contact with our students. This is not something that's one and done. This is ongoing through a number of different mediums. So we just finished a calling campaign. Every one of those 6,000 students received a personal phone call from our admissions advisors to talk to them about what's happening next with their lives, to help them make the decision about where they're going. We know our students are struggling with COVID and what decisions they need to make. So there's a lot of questions out there. So those personal phone calls gave those students an opportunity to ask direct questions about financial aid or scholarships or what might be happening in the fall. We are going to continue to work what we call the funnel. So students who have been admitted but who have not yet enrolled, we will continue to reach out to them via text message and email and phone calls. This spring, we did a postcard campaign from our student ambassadors. A series of 3 postcards to all admitted students went out. And we're launching our 3 postcards campaign for this summer to all registered students. So they're constantly hearing from our staff. We are continuing to offer Zoom meetings for our students once a week so that they're able to log in at a time that's convenient for them to get answers to commonly asked questions. I'm excited to say that we're open for tours as of Monday, and Monday we had 8 people showing up here for tours, so that was exciting and refreshing to see people coming back on our campus. We are also communicating with our prospective students about orientation as they're signing up for orientation and as for both in-person and the pre-orientation modules. And then we're going to be sending out our view book for prospective students here in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll be sending a travel piece to some sophomores starting in July. Next slide, Diana, please. Just a quick update on where we're at with the residence halls. We have 715 total deposits paid as of 6/15 compared to 656 in the fall of 19. So we're seeing some good numbers there. Next slide. And then I wanted to show you what we're seeing with pre-orientation. 914 students have started the ISU module, and 665 have completed that. And then of the Safe Colleges coursework, 431 students have completed that. You can see by the series of dates that we are seeing increased numbers every couple of days. So students are responding to us reaching out to them and asking them to complete these pieces. I think that's it for me. Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about how we're communicating with our continuing students.
All right, thanks. So now I'm nervous. Can everybody hear me? Okay, awesome. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. I would like to give a brief update on advising and registration. So this spring, we've transitioned towards a more proactive advising model, but in order to do this, we've had to reorganize in some areas just to make sure that every advisor has a defined and managed caseload of students. But to monitor our progress in real time, we've also been utilizing a few different spreadsheets to track students that need communication. So for our new students, we have a spreadsheet that comes down from the Office of Admissions, and they identify folks that are interested in speaking with an advisor and wanting to start in the fall. We also have a spreadsheet that allows us to track those students that have completed the online pre-orientation. And that's been a really good indication for those that are ready to register. And so we're always reaching out to that group as they appear on that spreadsheet. Then finally, we have a third spreadsheet, and it shows our continuing students, the whole group of them, 6,000 or so, and who is registered for the fall, who is not yet. So we track these 3 different spreadsheets constantly to help direct our communication, drive our engagement with students that need it the most, and we're emailing, calling, texting, as we move students towards appointments. One other thing worth noting on this is because advisors spend all day in appointments, we're also using peer advisors to help with that process of scheduling appointments, and they're doing an amazing job. There's 2 additional projects I just want to mention real quick that's helping with our registration and enrollment numbers. One is a campaign where we have partnered with Craig Joseph and also admissions to communicate with our roughly 1,000 students that were attending last fall but did not come back in the spring of 20, so they stopped out. And so admissions is emailing and texting these students to try to get them to bite and give some sort of indication that they're interested. And then if they are, they push those along to advising. That just started last week. And so far we have registered 8 of those students. That doesn't sound like a lot, but this is a bit of a less responsive group because they have stopped attending. But in the coming year, we're going to be, this is an example of us working every possible way to find students. And hope we can enroll many, many more from this group in the next couple of months. And then secondly, we've partnered with Marcom and our university development staff to engage with those students that have registered. In advising, we're focusing a lot of our attention on talking to those students that haven't registered yet. And so this is a group of folks that could help us by communicating with those that have already registered, just to make sure they don't have any major issues or concerns. And this is going really well. Students are responding positively, and the calls are going to continue over the next couple of weeks. Next slide. And so here's some data that shows our registration progress over the past month and a half. The new students are in blue, continuing in orange, and then total. So keep in mind the new students in blue are not purely freshmen and transfers. It also includes any student that did not attend this past spring. So all of our former readmits, any of those stopped out students I just referred to, are also included in this number. But we're tracking, as you can see, in a positive direction, adding about 250 new registrations or so each week. And so the number as of yesterday was 6,387 for total enrollment. As of today, we're up in over 6,400. So things are moving well in this area. So the final slide, change that over. It has a lot of data there, but just to kind of help break it down, it shows where we're at with data this fall compared with last summer to see how we're tracking. And so over this 4-week period, if you look at the bottom right box where it says week 6 data, so this is from mid-May, and it shows that at that time we were roughly 1,000 registrations down. You can see that in orange at the bottom, and that we are down in total about 16%. The next week, the week 7 data, we cut the difference of registrations down well under 1,000, and so we dropped, we improved by 3% to a 13% differential. The following week, we held steady. There are some factors involved with that, with Memorial Day and some other things. And then finally, the June 8 data showed that we cut into that again by 3%. Unfortunately, we didn't get data for June 15th. The person in IR that runs it every week was out this week on vacation, but we're going to be pushing hard. We hope to have this down another 4 to 6% by the time we get the data the following Monday. But that's the update I have for today. I did notice there's very, very few advisors on this call because they're all on registration advising appointments, but I did want to take a moment and publicly thank them for all the work they're putting in this spring and summer as they assist our students and help remove barriers so they can attend in the fall. But that's the advising update I have this afternoon, so thank you.
Corey, Stacy, everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. It takes a village to run a university, to welcome students here, and I so appreciate the extraordinary efforts of our teams. So now I want to talk about Black Lives Matter and what has been happening. There was no way that I could come together with all of you and not talk about this, not touch on this, because it's too important. So typically I would probably just speak from the heart, which I hope I'm going to do, but I wrote down a statement, and I wrote it down, and I'm going to read it to you because there are so many elements that I did not want to miss. So I think that for me, the protests, the violence, the hurt, the fear, the anger are all very palpable. And so I wanted to speak to that from my perspective and how I am expecting and hoping that we as a division and we as a university will move forward with this. And so after I'm done, I'm going to turn this over to our colleagues Rick Pongratz, Stacy Gibson, and Sari Byerly to talk about some of the things that we have done and some of the things we are going to do. So here's my statement. As a white identifying woman of significant unearned privilege, I am aware of my responsibility to move beyond simple words of support. I need to do my own work to learn and unlearn thoughts and behaviors and move into advocacy and action. Given the rise of protesters and allies across the nation who are rightly challenging the systems of oppression that are so ingrained in this country, our campus, and I hope, I pray, our world is ready for systemic change. I commit to being vigilant in addressing systemic oppression on campus and in society. ISU must be an institution rich with opportunity, equality, and the readiness to embrace each and every individual in our community. As a university, we are committed to creating an institution that recognizes and values every individual for the diversity they bring to our campus community. As such, one of our presidential project charters is to develop a robust and prominent equity, inclusion, and diversity program that actively fosters those principles and addresses barriers to equity and inclusion. And Stacy Gibson is leading that initiative. In addition, with colleagues, I will be developing a multicultural student advisory council to advise and guide me on matters that impact the student experience. To quote Dr. Martin Luther King, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." It is time for us, for ISU, to address the threat and pain of injustice. If we do not, injustice will continue to go unchallenged. Rick?
Thank you, Lynn. Where do we go from here? Okay, so how can we work collectively as a division to be deliberate in our support of students and staff members and work for justice? And more than that, from what I know about the people I've worked with in student affairs, I know that each of you individually want to be a good person who helps others and does the right thing. That's why I like you. That's why I like being here. And so I'm here to chat briefly about an approach that I would like to encourage you all to take regarding discussions of race and culture and the concepts of racism and discrimination and oppression. These concepts will serve, that I'm going to talk about, will serve both the goals of us as a division and us as professionals as we try to create a just culture on our campus and in our world, as well as benefit you personally through your own growth and your own betterment. And so the first thing I'd like to do then is acknowledge that each of you listening today reside in your own culture and set of life experiences that is unique to you. You have your own life, your own family and cultural backgrounds that have led you to be the person that you are today and hold the views that you have today, whatever those are. So you have your race and your religion, your sexual orientation, gender identity, your sex, your family, economic background. All of those experiences have informed who you are. Those experiences and that how it's formed who you are becomes your base of operations. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It's who we are. It's where I'm at, it's where you are, it's where we start from. And so what matters then is how we use that base and where we go from here. As you've all been watching the news and reflecting on your own life experiences, you're also having your own emotional reactions to everything that's going on right now. And so you might, especially if you're a white person who tends to not really talk about race that much, you might find yourself having a lot of anxiety about I don't know the words to say, how do I start having these conversations? You might be afraid of being labeled a racist or wanting to just avoid the topic altogether. You might have fear, other people might have fear because the racial injustice that we have in our country is a threat to their actual lives and their livelihoods. You may have anger from seeing the injustice that you've seen or for seeing things not happen the way that you want. or for having endured some of these experiences yourself. You also may be really struggling with feelings of discouragement because perhaps you've been someone who has worked a long time for racial equality, or have worked to address these things, and you're looking at the country around you and you don't see that a lot has changed. And so I just described a bunch of negative emotional states, but I want to encourage everyone on this call to rent with the option to buy the notion that good can come of the discussions that we're having right now. And I want you to rent with the option to buy that idea that if we can engage with one another and have discussions that really look at the problems we're facing and try to work towards solutions and connection with each other, that good things can happen. And so we live in a divided country in terms like the words privilege and microaggressions and the like have unfortunately become embroiled in those divisions we have in our culture, to the point where a lot of times people don't even think about the meaning of those terms. They just have a base positive or negative association with people who talk about that. And so I want to encourage you to move beyond maybe whatever political or otherwise notions you've had about these different topics, and focus on creating a positive, healthy relationships and a healthy environment with your colleagues and for all of our students, staff, and faculty on campus. And so we're gonna have multicultural interactions, and regardless of your unique background, you're gonna encounter people who are different from you in one way or another. You have an option. You can choose to be sort of arrogant and just blindly believe that anyone who doesn't see the world exactly the way you do is wrong, bad, silly, dumb, whatever. Or, and that would be quite a lonely existence because everyone differs from us in some way. Or you can take a different approach. And so that's the concept that I want to encourage you to take right now. And the concepts that I'm talking about, there are two things: cultural humility and cultural curiosity. So that humility is a value toward which most of us have positive feelings. And cultural humility is the practice of acknowledging that while I may know an awful lot about my identity and my background, if I've spent the time to consider it, other people know theirs best. And other people may see things in me. I know that I'm a white man, but other people who have had different experiences may see things in me to which I'm oblivious. And humility means that I am open to these conversations and that I consider what others tell me seriously without moving toward being defensive. I practice being open and willing to have the conversation and know that I've probably been wrong about some things in my life. And that's just because I've ended up where I am with my experiences, but I can do something about it now by being open to these conversations. It also means then that we're curious. So I mentioned cultural curiosity. We're curious about the cultures of others, and it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to make mistakes, and that concept of not knowing is a critical perspective to move toward as we practice cultural humility. It's saying, I don't know, but because I care about you and I care about doing right by others, I will seek to be open and listen so that I can learn and keep from inadvertently harming you. It's a place that our culture doesn't really reward us being vulnerable in that way, but it really goes a long way to helping us connect and heal. And this is hard for a lot of us, especially because you're all competent and you know a lot of things in your profession. However, by attaching to that value humility and being curious and striving to engage and listen, we can ensure that we act with intention and avoid the negative, and we are able to avoid those negative unintended consequences of our actions that might harm other people. So please think about being humble and curious as we continue to have this conversation today and in the weeks and months to come. Please know that I'm willing and happy to talk with anyone. If you have questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I'm happy to chat with you about any of these concepts or other things. And I'm going to turn some things over to Stacy Gibson now, who's going to talk about some of the programming that's already happened on our campus in this past year, because it turns out we've been quite active in some of these areas, but also then maybe talking about how we can all engage a little bit more in having these conversations and being curious towards one another.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Lynn, for your statement earlier. Can you hear me? Okay. I also want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today from a place of privilege, and I think that's really an important step to take as we begin to explore these conversations, these deeper conversations with each other. So as I was reflecting on how to address this group, I want to acknowledge this is a large group. 118 people are on this call. And I think it's really important to meet people where they're at and to acknowledge that we are probably all in different places about this. Rick talked about the emotions that we might all be feeling. Some of these emotions multiple times during a day, depending on what's happening. So I thought I would focus on what we have in common and start from there. We're all student affairs professionals, and we all have care and concern for our students. It's also quite clear that the events of the past month have made several other things clear. We have not done enough. And to quote Lynn, this is the royal we as in society, we as in leaders, and we as in student affairs professionals. We can do better. We can always do better. We can strive for more understanding. We have to hold ourselves and each other accountable. And I think that's really a good starting place, specifically for looking at yourself. I'm going to ask you to do that a little deeper in just a minute. We must seek out opportunities to understand other perspectives. And I also want to talk about it's okay to be uncomfortable. These are not comfortable conversations. It's okay to get comfortable with your discomfort as we begin to dig a little bit deeper into these issues. In that discomfort is where we find new knowledge and new understanding. So I'd like you to reflect a little bit, and I want you to think to yourself, how have I engaged in the past 12 months outside my normal? We are so fortunate to be on a college campus. There's nothing but opportunity in front of us. I can go to the health center on campus. I can go to the pharmacy on campus. I can go to the post office or the bookstore. This is a community, literally. And there are so many ways for us to engage with each other. So I just want to review that opportunity. So Diana, would you pull up the programming Google Doc, please? We just did a very quick review of events from the Diversity Center, the Gender Center, Native American Student Services, TRIO, Counseling and Testing, and Disability Services. These are all events that were held in 2019, 2020 within our division. That's just us. That doesn't take into account any of the student groups that Val and Lowell work with. It doesn't have any of their programming. It doesn't have any of the SAB programming or anything like that. There is nothing but opportunity here. It also is opportunity within our academic departments as they do their own events. There's plenty of opportunity within our community. There's opportunity to engage with NAACP, with Too Great for Hate, with the Interfaith Council, any of those groups outside of our community. And this is all pre-COVID as well, by the way. So this doesn't count any of the events that we canceled when our campus came to a close in April or May. So this list would have probably been much longer after that as well. So I'm proud of us, and I'm proud of the work that we have done. But I want you to think about, as you look through this list, how many of these opportunities did I take advantage of? And maybe how many of these are missed opportunities or ways that I could have engaged and that I might look to engage in the future? We have had a great history of working with our local law enforcement. Our DERC staff has trained the Pocatello Police Department in the past and has been invited back to train on diversity topics with Pocatello Police. In addition to that, we have hosted forums on LGBTQ issues, particularly around trans students and their experiences, and on people of color engaging with law enforcement. So we have a long history over the past 5 years of already paying attention to this type of programming. And that's something that we would continue and certainly want to do in the future as well. So here's my challenge to you. This is your call to action from me, specifically. I'm asking you to disrupt your normal. I'm asking you to get uncomfortable. I'm asking you to engage in a different way, using those aspects of cultural humility that Rick was talking about earlier. I'm asking you to educate yourself. And Sari, who's going to be giving you some resources on how to do that. I'm asking you to create and hold space for conversations about race and racial injustice and racial equity. Maya Angelou said, "I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better." We can all do better. And that is my challenge. I really dislike the fact that I have to mention this next part to you, but Lynn asked me to do it, and so I'm going to. We're receiving reports of racist language on individual students' Facebook pages. Sometimes these students are affiliated with ISU, sometimes they're not. We find these statements abhorrent, but we also have to protect the rights of free speech. ISU has a webpage that's dedicated to student expression and to free speech, filled with great information. That's the link to it that's up on the slide right now. It's got a great FAQ section, and that FAQ section talks about hate speech and the ways to combat hate speech. And I will tell you that the best way to do that is with more speech and with allyship. There's also a bunch of resources. There are laws and policies on this page. So I would encourage you to take a look at that page, as you might have students that are coming to you with similar questions and concerns. Also, you can always contact me directly with your concerns, or you can contact Craig, our Dean of Students, about those concerns as well. So please take a look at that resource, and if you want to have a deeper conversation, I'm happy to have that with you. I'll now turn the time over to Sari for the resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Rick, and thank you, Lynn. I appreciate being able to be with all of you today. One of the things we talked about last week was sometimes being able to listen to each other and be compelled, knowing that we're student serving professionals, but trying to figure out where to start. And so as we think about where do we start, where do we take where we are right now? So the fourth resource on this page that's being shown right now, how to be an ally. The first thing that article talks about is owning your power and privilege and being able to kind of work through what does that mean and what power and privilege do I bring with my story. But one of the other points that they talk about is to start where you are and figure out where am I and how can I challenge getting to a different or uncomfortable space, as Stacy was talking about, challenging yourself to do. But sometimes it's really difficult to do that without having resources of where to start. So this is a page and a half of resources. One of them that I really have found very helpful, and I know several faculty on this campus and across the country are utilizing number 5 on this resource list. It utilizes the lens of Helm's white racial identity development model, and you can really see where you might be as far as perhaps we've had some conversations within the access and opportunity programs about comments of, I don't see color. Well, what does that mean? And if you're in that stage, it really talks about some great reading materials of seeing like how do you take yourself from seeing color and feeling like it's okay to talk about race to the next stage. So I would really encourage you to look at these resources. There's also links to courses that you can take and webinars that you can be part of. All the ones that I put on here are free, but feel free if you have great resources to add to this document, because one thing we wanted, and the reason that we came together as a group of 4 of us, is this is not an equity and inclusion only conversation. This is not counseling and testing conversation. This is not about Dean of Students conversation. This is about a student affairs unit and making sure that as staff and student serving professionals, that we're here to support each other no matter where we're starting from, and we're here to kind of help challenge where we're at and where we want to go. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lynn. I do want to just make note, if you have any suggestions of activities that we have not done, or that you have suggestions of things we could do in the future, or resources to add to this link, please email myself, Stacy, Rick, Craig, or Lynn, and we can get them added and continue to support our great Bengal community.
Thank you, Sari, Stacy, and Rick. I do want to, this is just still awkward for me, and these conversations are tough. No matter where we're at, no matter what we think, for me it comes down to looking at what we do and who we're doing it for, and that's for our students, to support them, to support the staff, us who support the students, to work with our campus community and beyond. And so to do this over Zoom is just weird and certainly not ideal. So we are going to be figuring out how we take this and continue these dialogues. Whether it's having a common book read, if it's going to be coming together via Zoom, or maybe someday in person, to be able to talk about some of the tough things that are facing our students, that are facing our world. For me, this is not political. This is simply based on human respect, human dignity, and valuing who we are and what we bring to the table. So to all of you, thank you. Thank you for listening and being a part of the conversation. And now I do want to turn this over to questions that you might have about any topic, whether it's something we talked about today or something that we did not. And I believe that Ginny is going to be facilitating that.
Thanks, Lynn. We do have a few questions already, and then I would ask anybody to jump in and ask more questions as they come to you. The first one is a budget-related question. Did we say we were eliminating 6 positions and then adding new positions? This is confusing. Can we get more details?
You know, that is confusing, and I should know exactly the numbers. What we did was we did have some salary savings for open positions, and we had some folks who are leaving for a variety of reasons, sometimes retirement, sometimes other positions that they have accepted. And the new positions that we are getting, one is in our counseling and testing center. We know that mental health counseling and mental health support is a huge one for our students. It always has been and always will be. Another position is to support the EAB initiative that we have. So it's an academic advising analyst position. Corey, do you want to speak to that real briefly?
Yeah, I can. We just need a person to support that system. It would be like having a CRM in admissions with no Katana. I mean, you have to have, if you're familiar with her, somebody that works within the system and tracks it regularly, makes sure the different aspects of that platform are working smoothly, and essentially to help ensure that we're really utilizing the tool and leveraging every dollar we invest into it. So it's I see it as a position, if you're going to go towards the AB, this type of role is just a necessary added expense to make sure that you're able to use it and it just doesn't sit there kind of half used. So it's a critical role for us moving forward.
Next question.
Next question, thanks, Lynn, would be, would the increase in enrollment affect the budget potentially?
Yes. So our university budget really comes from a variety of different sources, partly from the state, partly from local dollars, revenue that we bring in from a variety of different sources, student activity fees, as well as tuition and fees. And so if our enrollment goes up, which would be great, then that to me is the best way to balance a budget, is to increase revenue as opposed to cut costs. So right now we are, as Corey had shared, we are still down from where we were last year and where we are certainly hoping and working to get to be this year. If we don't meet our enrollment, then that's going to be a whole different picture as to what our budget is going to look like. Certainly we could be looking at additional furlough days. We could be looking at layoffs, although that's not what I want. We would have to tighten our belts in a lot of different ways. So as Idaho has rebounded back with reopening things, I know that travel is back on the table, and people are starting to travel, certainly personally, but that might be something that we would take a look at and say, we're not going to do travel because that is a way to save money. So we need to all do what we can to make sure that our community and our education is open and available and accessible for our students. And so that's where admissions is doing such a super job of reaching out to our prospective students, and then our academic advisors and a whole slew of team are reaching out to our current students.
Thanks, Len. Next question is for Craig. In relation to events, we've been told no communal food. Is that just for outside rental groups? And how are we defining communal?
There are some guidelines for events that are going to get, I think, sent out to the university community pretty soon. But one of the items is for food, things like no self-serve buffets. Order maybe individual box meals is going to be a better, safer option for how to have events on campus. So those guidelines are going to get sent out fairly soon. I think food is always one issue, but as people plan events or programs, knowing that keeping people the 6-foot physical distance apart, having people wearing face coverings is also critical to any time we're having people gather. But in terms of food, I don't think we have a definition for communal food, but it would be things like no self-serve buffets. If there is any type of serving option, it would be served from a staff member from our dining services and not by the participants themselves.
Thank you. What is the plan to keep morale high within the division when we are doing more with less and we are not receiving increases in pay?
That's right, and that's a really hard thing. I think much of it comes from those that we work with, and hopefully more times than not, we like who we work with, and so coming to work, whether again that's physically or via Zoom, is a positive thing. I have been trying to figure out how we can have a welcome back celebration party with prepackaged food items, going back to that, for the division prior to the end of summer and before school starting. And I haven't quite figured out how to do that or where to do that. So I'm kind of looking at, can we have lawn games and have that on the quad, or should we have that up in at some park area in Pocatello, and then also do something in Idaho Falls and Meridian. So somehow it's how do we remain a community even while we are standing farther apart from one another. I would absolutely welcome any and all ideas that you have as to what will help, what would be meaningful to you, to your colleagues, to help keep us going through this really, really icky time.
So next question is on housing. How is housing planning to tackle the fall semester in residence halls that we have 2 people per room or communal spaces?
Okay, I just froze up there, so I did not hear the question.
Yeah, you bet. So it's a question on housing. How is housing planning to tackle the fall semester in residence halls that have 2 people per room or communal spaces?
Lowell, are you here and can you address that?
I can.
Great.
We do have a plan. It has not been officially approved yet. It's going through the approval process, but our plan that we're recommending is that the rendezvous complex will have 3 to 4 residents just because of the makeup of that suite. There'll be as usual, if you will, the rendezvous. South complexes and Turner, there will be a limit to how many students you can have per floor. The health department is more concerned about the density of individuals in those buildings. So for example, in Turner Hall, there'll be 27 students per floor. And in South Complex, it can be 12 to 13 per floor. So in other words, we're cutting our capacity in half for South Complex and Turner Hall. Masks will be required. All the different CDC recommendations, health department recommendations will be put in place. There'll be some restrictions on visitors. So I think we have a good plan moving forward. Again, that has not been officially approved, but that is what we've been working out with Ron Solbrig and others in the health department.
Thanks, Lowell. Next question. With the furloughs, did I understand that we will lose that income on the paycheck we take our days? Megan, maybe that would be a good one for you if you don't mind taking that one.
Yeah, you know, and I don't have all the details on the furlough, but the way that I understand it, yes, that's correct. That if you choose to take, you know, half a furlough day during one pay period, that would be the pay period that it would be shorted. However, I do know, and I think, I can't remember if it's non-classified individuals can actually set up like throughout the year. I'm sorry, I'm getting a warning. Can you guys hear me okay?
You're breaking up just a little, but mostly.
Oh, okay. So I think there is something that you can get set up to where it would actually be dispersed throughout the year. So like they would just take a little bit out of each paycheck. I can look to get more details on that. If anybody was interested, please feel free to email me. And I will look into that for anybody who is interested in that.
Great, thank you. What is the enrollment target? Maybe that would be for Stacy and Corey.
You want me to take that one, Stacy? I'm not sure if she's on still.
I'm on. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, there you are.
Okay, sorry. The target that we've been working with was to get 70 new undergraduate students on the new side, and then Corey can speak to the continuing side.
From a continuing side, what I've been working with our advisors is our target is to manage to meet level enrollment for the fall. Of course, we want to go up, and that's our plan, and we're kind of working every hour of every day to do that. But we also know budget-wise, as Lynn mentioned a minute ago, there's some negative consequences if our budget is down. And we know this is not obviously entirely on our shoulders, but we definitely feel some weight there. But we're trying to manage it at the bare minimum level enrollment for the fall, which is right around, give or take, 7,400 undergrad and grad. So that's what we are targeting as a floor.
Okay, thanks to you both. Okay, next question, and maybe we'll start with Rick. Rick, for this one. I'm first gen and white. Can we get some kind of guidance on how to navigate white privilege discussions when we don't feel privileged?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank whoever asked that question. I'm going to share a little bit, and I want to invite Stacy and Sarah and anybody else to chime in here as well. So my background is certainly white and male, and so I think that those, so broadly defined, privilege can be specific to different areas. And so I may be privileged in some areas and not privileged in others. And so I'm white and male, which gives me the privilege that goes with those. And that privilege just means that it's nothing that I did to earn the benefits of those categories. It's just that the way our society has kind of evolved, I have some advantages in those realms that other people don't. And so, for example, when I'm alone on a trail run, this is my example of my male privilege. When I'm alone on a trail run and I encounter another guy running, I don't have to worry about being assaulted by him. It's just another runner to me. Whereas a woman running alone out, in the middle of nowhere may have a different feeling about that person than I do. And so they may not be scared, they may be scared, but the fact that it doesn't have to enter their mind is kind of a privilege. And so my background is from I'm from a lower socioeconomic background. And so I grew up on a very small family farm in rural Nebraska and was Pell Grant in college. And so I had that background too. And so economically speaking, when I was growing up, I was not economically privileged. And so when we're going into these conversations about, and I know this was something that I struggled with for a long time when I was learning more about diversity and things like that, was I didn't feel privileged. And so we tend to think about the areas where we lack privilege when we think about ourselves. That's just kind of our default. We're more attuned to that. And so the advice that I would give is kind of something I lived through is when these conversations come up, notice that feeling that you get, and it's valid, and you're right, you've lacked some of that economic privilege in some areas. And allow that to have value in space, but also don't allow it to take away from this privilege conversation when we talk about the issue related to race. And so that there are different kinds of privilege, and you have some in some areas and you don't have some in others, but it's okay to engage in the ones where you don't have privilege without feeling defensive. You can still learn from those experiences and those discussions.
Thank you. And I just want to chime in and say that I really think that that's where being able to come together and have conversations and learn from everybody is what I'm hoping that we can and will do, because we all have something to add. It's just what we add and how we add that. So I'm looking forward to the conversations. They're not always easy to either to say or to listen to, but I think it's really critical that we do that.
Thanks. The next is a statement versus a question. I would like to thank our division for discussing Black Lives Matter. I know it is an uncomfortable topic, but things need to be discussed. Thank you, Lynn, Rick, Stacy, Zeri, and the rest of the team for bringing these items to the forefront.
Good. I know that we are past time, and I know that everybody is super busy. Kind of going back to what was said earlier, that we're doing more with less. So if you need to or want to or just had it and want to exit the room, you are absolutely more than welcome to do that. I understand that. I certainly will stick around and answer questions until either we're done or until my next meeting starts, which is at 3:30. But in between now and then, I really want to thank all of you for being here and for being engaged, for being you. Again, for giving me the honor and the privilege of working with you. And I look forward to continuing our conversations about anything and everything. So thank you. And Jenny, I will see if there are more questions.
I think that's all the questions that we have right now. And Megan has just shared some more information about furloughs, the furlough site, as well as some detailed information about classified staff and faculty and non-classified staff. This information is also available at the furlough site, previously on the chat from Megan. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to you, Lynn, if you have anything else to add for your conclusion.
Honestly, I think that was it. So thank you. And as we started off, happy birthday to many people. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thanks for celebrating with us. And again, we will talk more and we will talk soon.